Welcome back to our series of videos on the best way to get water in the wild. Today our project's going to be a charcoal water filter.
So what we're basically going to do is we're going to use the hunting knife, because we probably won't have scissors if you're lost out in the woods. And we're going to cut out the back of these bottles and fill them up with charcoal and sand and small rocks. Then we're going to pour some nasty water down from the swamp. We're going to pour it through there and see how clear it comes out. So first thing we're going to do before we start cutting things and filling things, we got to gather up the supplies, and we're going to start with the charcoal. So we're going to break some pieces off of this log, which is pretty crispy, and then we're going to break them up and smash them down into a dust that's fine enough that it'll filter water well. Okay, so now we got our charcoal all ground up into a really fine dust. Looking back, we probably should have put something under it because I don't know how much of it we're going to be able to get off the blacktop. But now the next thing we got to do is cut up our water bottles. Another thing you're going to need is a piece of cloth. We just grabbed a little scrap of cloth, but if you're really in a survival situation, you can use a sock or a piece of your shirt or basically anything. If it's a little bit thinner, it's a little better because it doesn't soak up as much of the water. And the dirt is pretty simple. You just need something that's not too rocky. So if you get more rocky dirt, then you want to sort out some of the bigger chunks because the finer the sand, the better it'll filter. And then you also need a little bit rockier layer on the top. Okay, so now we got all our materials. We got the water bottle, a piece of cloth, the charcoal. We got some fine sand, a little bit coarser sand that we dug up when we were making the evaporation trap, and we got some fine gravel, some small rocks in here for the top layer. So we're going to start out by putting the cloth, take the lid off. Then put the cloth down in there, which apparently is harder than it looks.
Very much.
One second, I need a stick. Okay, we're back from our commercial break. There we go. Or not. So the next thing is the charcoal. So just pile that in there. You want it to come up to maybe about a little below the label on the water bottle.
It's just shaking at the bottom.
Shouldn't. Just tap it a little bit. The cloth should catch it. If it doesn't, you didn't put the cloth in right. Which I don't think is the case, but it might start falling out. Okay, so next is the fine sand that goes on top of the gravel, or not the gravel, the charcoal. And that should come up maybe another little bit. Somewhere a little below the top of the label. Then we got our coarser sand from the evaporation trap, and that should come up past the top of the label. After that, the final layer, get it to settle a little bit. Then the final layer is the fine gravel. And then we're ready to put water through it. Probably looks like you wouldn't want to drink anything that went through there, but we'll see how it works once we send some dirty water through it. Okay, so I forgot a step. The last thing you need to do is take the bottom and you got to cut off the edges so there's a little bit of room for the water to get around it, and then put it down in there, and that should keep the water from just pouring down there and mixing everything up in like a big sludge. This will slow it down before it just slams into the rocks and sand. I don't know why we're taking this to the swamp. We'll grab that on our way back up.
Don't forget it.
Are you still filming?
Mm-hmm.
Get some of the scum out of the way.
Yum on.
Looks like just the kind of stuff you'd want to drink with your lunch. Not really, but it soon will be.
Maybe.
So the next thing we gotta do is pour the swamp water into our filter and then go wash our pot and put it below because our other pot is still in the evaporation trap.
Mmm, tasty. Give you $5 to drink it right now.
No.
10.
Don't want to get giardia.
What?
Isn't that the disease that you get from... You know what? Never mind.
Okay.
I think... We'll get some more.
Ew, it's on my hands now.
Oh, whatever. Okay, I'm gonna go wash the pot.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Apparently it takes longer than we think.
Okay, let's take it up and then we'll wait for a while.
Maybe it hasn't...
We knew it took a long time, but we didn't really expect nothing to come out. Maybe it's too
Probably hasn't gotten to the charcoal yet.
Yeah. Finally, after an hour and 45 minutes of filtering, we got most of the water through the filter and into our pot. To me, it looks like we got about maybe a quart of water, but we're gonna make sure, or not a quart, sorry, maybe a cup of water. But we're gonna make sure we measure that before we dump it out, so we can factor it into our what is the best way to get water in a survival situation. As you can see, it's not really the cleanest water I've ever seen. There's got a bit of charcoal, and it's got a bit of a yellowish tint. You can especially see this if you tip it. What I think happened, we didn't get the cloth down there completely, and a little bit of charcoal slipped past around the edges. And there was also a small hole towards the top, so I think at first it was leaking out down into the pot. But in a survival situation, it would definitely be better than nothing, and it got most of the stuff out of it. You can look down in there and see that there's a lot of green algae or whatever. After one filtering session, which you could do more with the same filter, but we're just gonna judge it off of the first one. So after one of those, we get right about 5/8 of a cup or so. So that's going to factor into our judging of which is the best way to get water. So today we did this charcoal water filter. Honestly, this one was my favorite to make and everything, but it was quite a lot more complicated than either of the other two.
Simplicity, I would give it a 4, yeah.
We're going with the 4. Step backwards.
Yes, look backwards.
Materials, I think that you would probably be fairly likely to find a water bottle, and you could find the sand and everything, but the charcoal, you would have to have a fire for this one to work.
Yeah.
So, and also, at the end, you'd probably have to boil it. So having materials for a fire and the ability to make it in the wild is more doubtful than having like a garbage bag or something like that for the plant transpiration. So I'm thinking on this one maybe a 5 or 6.
Yeah, 6.
Almost did it backwards again. Drinkability, this one I definitely think that you would have to
0.
boil it afterwards. Maybe it's just the way we made it, but that also plays into the simplicity, which was not very good. It was a lot harder to make, and I guess we didn't even make it right because our water came out pretty cloudy and stuff.
Piece of cloth, but...
Oh yeah, and you need cloth, but as long as you're wearing something, that's good. Okay, so drinkability, I think we give it maybe a 2. In an extreme situation, it's better than drinking straight out of a swamp, but
2.
I think 2. Which brings us to yield. This one so far has been our best, but still, I mean, would it give us 5/8, a little more than half a cup? It took quite a while to filter. If we wanted to make more, we'd have to put it in for a lot longer and use it again, which would take another almost 2 hours to filter out the same amount. So to get more than a cup, you would have to do it for 4 hours, and to get a quart, you'd need to do it for 8 hours, which is hardly enough. So I would say maybe 5 on this one. So the total would be 17. They just keep going down. I would have thought this one would be better, but so far plant transpiration is looking like the best. The water filter was not very good. It wasn't even as good as our evaporation trap, which only gave us a little tiny amount of water. So, yeah, that's it. Next time, we're going to be doing another contraption to get water in the wild. The end.